Iconicfuture, we were founded in 2011. We're a service company for the games industry, helping game developers and publishers to partner with iconic rights within the intellectual property space, both for social, online and mobile titles. The aim of any branded virtual item integration is not just to make a game more enjoyable and more fun, but also we know that by introducing brands that are recognizable for users, that we can also bring great content to a game, oftentimes bring added marketing value, but certainly help to monetize the games themselves. And we work with a whole host of rights from the entertainment space, sports, character licenses, movies, and the like. To date, we have sold almost 4 million branded items in games, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about some of the campaigns that we've run, the objectives that the various development teams had, and how branded items have helped them to achieve those objectives. Some of the partners we've worked with, I'll be talking to you about some of the campaigns from a selection of the guys there on the game side, and then on the right side, as you can see, we work with a lot of the national and international football clubs and federations, as well as major rights holders, many of whom have opened up entire catalogues to us, the likes of CBS, Hasbro, Sony Pictures, etc., where we work across multiple IP for them and with them. So there can be a number of reasons to think about branded virtual items in your games. And the solution or the choices that you make and the IP selections that you go for will depend on the things you are trying to achieve within any given campaign. So it may be that you're looking to reduce your customer acquisition costs, and we know that having an IP associated with your game in any capacity will help with that discoverability piece. And we also know that new users are much more likely to try and to trust an IP or a game that's associated with it if they already have that trust with the IP itself. You can also be focused on engagement, retention and conversion, so moving into the product life cycle of your game, you want to find ways to make in-app purchases more compelling, but still making sure that your gamers are engaged and that they keep coming back and have some reason to revisit. I mentioned that marketing support oftentimes comes as a result of an IP integration. For many, that might be the driving ultimate objective, to actually get access to deep and extensive social media networks from partners. But it may also be tying in with a particular event or product launch on the part of the rights holder. And then finally, monetization itself. Ultimately, in-app purchases and the rights that are associated with branded items are sold. And again, we know from the experience that we've had over the course of Iconicfuture's campaigns that users will tend to pay up between 5 and 10 times more for branded content that they identify with and that they're passionate with than an equivalent non-branded item. So firstly, we'll look at a concrete example of an acquisition case study. And this was with Sports City by Pyro Games, which is a game in which you have to become the best manager in a city dedicated to sport. So it's a resource management game on Facebook, and our brief was to help Pyro to raise awareness of the game and also to drive new users to that game. What we did for them was introduce a whole raft of items from a number of international football teams, from the likes of Barcelona, AC Milan, Benfica, Arsenal and Real Madrid. And we closely matched the profile of the teams we selected for them with the Facebook audience. So it was the exposure to a new audience within the platform that the game was on that was important in this instance. We saw within the first few days really, so immediately after launch of FC Barcelona announcing their integration on the Facebook page, a very material spike in the MAUs for the game, which went up by 30%, and revenue as a result of the integration grew by 50%. So obviously the first 3 weeks there is the period directly preceding the campaign, and then the uplift as a result of that communication. So that was a very clear example that it was the FC Barcelona audience that had come in, and that's the new user acquisition, which obviously would be at a much cost-efficient way of achieving those new users than buying them. In terms of engagement and retention, we work extensively with BigPoint, and one of our earliest game integrations was Farmerama. We continue to put new content into Farmerama on a rolling basis, and the original brief from BigPoint was to look at ways of finding new and engaging content for their audience at a period where Farmerama was actually reaching a relatively mature stage of its life cycle. So to do that, we wanted to bring in something fresh and new, and we integrated the Aardman character Shaun the Sheep as a task in the game. And by really maximizing the usage of the IP throughout the duration of the right to exploit the IP, BigPoint have been able to keep that content fresh, and they keep introducing new content every couple of months. That keeps their users coming back. It was also supported by ProSieben in Germany for a TV campaign, which also helped to drive awareness. Staggering results from Farmerama. We saw within the first 2 weeks of the campaign over 300 million cakes sold by 1.5 million users to Shirley. So obviously, in terms of engagement from the audience, that was a great result. And as I say, we've gone on to do more work with Shaun the Sheep, and subsequently with My Little Pony as well within Farmerama. Conversion and monetization. Oftentimes you have an audience, but how do you then monetize it? How do you then make that conversion to your game being profitable? Outfit7 was one of our partners in the app space who, for those of you that may not know, have an app called Talking Tom. Talking Tom 2 had over 300 million downloads, and they were looking for ways to introduce premium content so that they could convert their users. They had them, they had the audience, they had the traffic, but they wanted those users to embark on an in-app purchase process. By integrating a number of global rights from sport and key entertainment brands, we were able to match those against the core fan base of the Talking Tom app itself, and those premium items that we introduced from a number of football clubs and from Star Trek there, as you can see, were actually priced at between 3 and 10 times higher than the non-branded items in the app. We were also fortunate enough to be able to take advantage of a key promotional window for this campaign, which was Euro 2012. And again, some great results from that campaign. We've sold over 1 million premium items in Talking Tom alone. At its peak, the integrations from Iconicfuture of premium content into Talking Tom has accounted for nearly 50% of all their in-app purchases. And the England shirt, which we promoted, which was promoted during Euro 2012, actually sold around 30,000 pieces within 48 hours. A second example of converting your loyal players was from Northworks Goalunited, again one of our key partners. In the football management game, we were looking to ways of how to improve the monetization piece within the gameplay. And the way we did that was we introduced, again through branded rights and through sports football teams, we introduced team challenges, so play against Germany and other nations together with famous stadia, so that there was a way to offer a new feature in the game and a new monetization point. The Benfica Academy that we integrated was actually as a shortcut tool effectively for scouting. So scouting being an integral part of the management process, you could let the clock run and do that organically, or you could actually save time on a standard activity by purchasing the Benfica Academy. obviously there's an affinity to that brand and to that experience, and that's proven out by the fact that we've had over 150,000 paid for team challenges to date in Goalunited, and the Youth Academy integration has actually given Goalunited a way to monetize what was previously a very standard activity in the game. Pool Live Tour from Jiwa. This is an example of monetization of whales, so converting payment and pushing the price point of monetization and in-app purchase up. We were asked to find ways to utilize premium items as a way to introduce a higher price point for Pool Live Tour, and that was really a campaign that was targeted at the core fan base of the game. With our partnership with World Snooker, we were able to integrate real live events and leverage those under a range of highly desirable and certainly better performing actual branded pool cues. Now, these are actually sold at around $50 a piece. So they obviously, in the deepest sense of the word, they are premium branded. But it does mean that it's the whales here that are being targeted, but also are receptive to having what effectively is a very visible kudos item and highly aspirational cue with a better performance. And we've seen over 2,500 items, which in its own context might not sound like a lot of items, but when you multiply that by the price point, that's obviously a great result for Jiwa. So how can development teams in the room and publishing partners and so on actually navigate the whole world of licensing and the rights that may be available? Iconicfuture actually has introduced, and we've recently launched into beta, a proprietary technology platform which we call our marketplace. As an online tool, this effectively is a research facility for producers, for marketing teams, for commercial teams within your organizations, so that you can search our database of licensable intellectual property. You can specify the rights that you want to find by a category, by a genre, perhaps by a keyword, but also by things like territory and demographics. And what you will see is an indication of rights that are prioritized by their relevancy to your search criteria. So that will also give you some additional brand information about the size of the audience, the size of their exposure on Facebook, etc. So this is how the marketplace looks. You essentially get a personalized dashboard, which, as you can see, and I'm sorry for some of the small font in the actual image, but you're searching by your filters, and the key licenses will come up with all of your personal information and status of your inquiries on your first screen. You can also get a very quick overview of matching rights, but then drill down into those that are more of relevance and interest to you. And on the top right there, you have an opportunity to then contact us for a specific inquiry. So that might be a specific indication of interest for a particular right, or for more information on what we have available. Excuse me. The way we structure our offering is obviously to scale according to size of organization. So we recognize that indies have a very different requirement and also bandwidth and budget for licensing from a major publisher with multiple titles. So for our indie partners, we consider this to be almost a self-service kind of model, a pay-as-you-go, if you will, where the rights that are available are in line with the kind of budgets and the kind of audiences that you may have as you set off on your growth curve. And as you mature into either a bigger indie or your game becomes more successful, you may want to look at more rights, and you may want to look at a more tailored IP discussion with us, and we would be very happy to help as you grow and as your titles expand. Most rights typically are based on a revenue share with some degree of minimum guarantee or advance, and that obviously will depend on the rights you're after. Obviously, a Superman is not going to be the same price as an archived TV show from 40 years ago. And then for publishers, we have a very bespoke offering with premium access to the marketplace, with support on licensing strategy, and also a real insight into the data and the analytics pertinent to your titles for premium branded items. The other piece to the equation is obviously to understand the actual results that you are deriving, and Iconicfuture really has the leading database right now of analytics within the premium branded items space. So with our insights, we know that we can begin to help you to analyze your price points, what works, not just within your game, but as a benchmark relevant to other IP integrations in similar genres, or other IP integrations perhaps in other types of titles that you may be considering. We can also share with you some of the learnings of the time distribution of branded items. So how long does an item with a license attached remain live and relevant to a particular audience? And the final piece on there is the impact of marketing activity. So by looking at your analytics and performance of your purchases, your in-app purchases, against key marketing events or promotional windows, you can actually begin to quantify the benefit and the return that you've had on that marketing spend, either from you or from a third party. So just a couple of examples of some of the early findings from, specifically this is from branded virtual items, and this is taking a look at all of the content that Iconicfuture has modeled to date. Just on price points, this is showing the average revenues, the net game revenues of item sales by price point. So from $1 to $15 at each price point, you can see that by far the $1 price points are still commanding the lion's share of revenues. However, there is certainly a drop off at $2, but that climbs again at $3. So what we would say, if we look at the chart there, is $10 is, sorry, euros, I beg your pardon. 10 euros is probably not the price point to go for, but obviously, again, there is a lot more data and detail depending on individual genre of games and individual licenses as well. Another interesting chart just to share with you as we close is looking at the time distribution of item sales. So branded items within games over a 6-month period. The spike shows that at that 6-month window, in all the campaigns we have run, we have seen a very discernible second wave peak. Not as high as the first launch, but there is certainly a reason to keep refreshing your items and keep really, as I said, treating your IP integration as a product life cycle in its own right. So finally, just a few points to think about when you are embarking on a licensing campaign, or if you already do licensing, just to think about, are you clearly defining the objectives that you want to achieve before you embark on any given licensing program. We know that it's really important to set your KPIs before you start and decide how the success of the campaign is going to be measured. It may not be monetization, it may actually be about growing your audience, or it may be about a conversion percentage. But understanding what you're looking to achieve before and after will help you to refine your offering as you go through the licensing process. Remember to choose IP that resonates with your target audience and correlates with your core demographic. I know that sounds really obvious, but it's easy to get swept away by a right that's perhaps available sooner or cheaper. But the matches that work best are those that are not just deeply integrated, but are seamlessly integrated. And those partnerships are the ones where a gamer will feel absolutely engaged and remain in his game space as he interacts with the product or the item that you would like him to purchase. Try and maximize those promotional windows. If there are partners who have launches, movie launches, product launches coming through, or are going to be running their own marketing campaigns, obviously try wherever possible to piggy on the back of those. And when you first want to pitch to a rights owner, remember to think about it from their side of the table. They want to understand how you intend to integrate that IP. They would like to see, in an ideal world, some thought and rationale as to the genre and the audience and the relevancy of that IP to your game. Be realistic about your expectations. We are still in a market which is highly volatile. Free to play is obviously a big part of our business, but there are lots and lots of shifting sands. That's both on the side of the games companies, but also on the side of rights holders, some of whom have been very open to trialing tests and now are becoming more astute in their business understanding of the space, and as a result may ask for a little more money. But also those who see the strategic value of aligning with a really strong partner in the game space, or partners. I've talked about the product cycle and the phasing of the rollout. Obviously, we know again that items that are marketed or are integrated in isolation don't perform as well as those where you continue to refresh. And finally, look to build long-term partnerships, both with your rights partners, with licensing experts who can help and steer you and guide you. But at the end of the day, nobody knows your game and your audiences like you do, and we will do our utmost to make sure that the partnerships that we can bring for you are the right ones and not just a right that we represent. So thank you for your time. Does anybody have any questions?
Yes, hello. Do you think the free-to-play is going to be an advantage for your market, because everybody, the free-to-play is, all the games are free-to-play now, so for the branded items, it's going to be a good market for you?
Absolutely. I think most, if not all, I think of the integrations that we have done have been within the free-to-play space, so a freemium market. If you are referring to more of the games as a service where games truly are free and they are just downloaded for free play, then I think that market will tend to be monetized by a different business model, so probably an ad-funded model, and that isn't Iconicfuture's business offering. Free-to-play, freemium, anything where there is a desire to bring an audience into your game and then to begin to engage them and monetize them and move them through a journey with you, that fundamentally is everything we are about at Iconicfuture and everything that a branded virtual item can help with.
And what's the most successful campaign you did so far?
Probably Talking Tom, looking at the numbers, but I think also specifically the Euro 2012 example that I showed there, just because you captured a moment where there was a lot of excitement around an event and a European, certainly at that period of time, a European event as well.
Okay, thank you. Еще вопросы? Thank you so much for coming.